Hey everyone, it's time for another drawing lesson with Mr. Linderman. Today we're going to learn about perspective drawing, 1-point perspective. So we'll be using straight lines and 1 point to try to create the illusion of space. So today you're going to need a pencil and you'll need an eraser, a straight edge, something like a plastic triangle or plastic ruler, and of course some paper or your sketchbook. So get those items and we'll get started. All right, first thing I'd like you to do is over on the right side, we're going to make a column where we can write down some steps. So maybe just a couple inches over from the edge. Just make a line there. So essentially you have a big square here. And we're going to write down the steps so that in case you ever forget or want to review, you can remember exactly how we built this drawing we're about to do. Step 1 is to put down or place a vanishing point. So let's just write that out. Step 1, vanishing point. If you want to write out vanishing point, you can. I'm going to abbreviate. As long as you remember, we're not talking about Mike Pence, the vice president. We are talking about a vanishing point. Right here, I'm going to place it right in the middle of my square, my piece of paper. And step 2, we're going to draw some shapes. So for the most part, some just 2D geometric shapes like this. In fact, think of this as like a big clock, okay? We've got the middle of the clock, but instead of numbers out here, we're going to place some different shapes. So right up here, I'm going to draw a triangle, which you can do freehand if you feel like it. Or if you feel more comfortable and you're a perfectionist, yes, you could use your straight edge and make everything perfect. But keep in mind, this is just note taking. I don't plan to color this in and sell it and try to make a buck. This is just some notes. Draw another triangle down here at the bottom. Same type, same way. So if you think of it like a clock, we've got one up here at 12 o'clock. We've got another triangle down here at 6 o'clock. Right over here at 3 o'clock, draw your best square. All right. Let's draw another square right down here. All right. Up here, draw your best circle, maybe about something the size of a nickel. Mine's more the size of a quarter, but that doesn't really matter. Let's draw a rectangle over here at 9 o'clock. Let's do a few that are more complex. Right over here, let's make an L. Yeah, in honor of me, Mr. L. So start with that L shape, but I would like to make it a shape that's more of a line or a couple lines. So make it into what I call a block letter L by doing this. And coming back this way. And I think you can take it from here, finish up that L. All right, so that one's a bit more complex. Tell you what, right up here, why don't you draw yourself just some strange shape? It might even be kind of an organic shape like this. I don't know what that is. Don't try to draw it just like mine. Just invent your own. This is going to be the one that's going to be the challenge at the end of all this. We'll see if you can get this trick to work with that. All right. So we've done step one, step two, vice president, the vanishing point. We drew shapes, and now it's time for a new word you might not be familiar with. And that word is orthogonals. Let me spell it out for you. Orthogonals. Now, I know you've heard of diagonals. So when you see that word gonals, it actually means a type of line. And maybe you've seen the word ortho before. If you've ever been to an orthodontist, that means ortho is basically a Greek word that means to make correct and straight. So you've got these correct straight lines. I know it's a mouthful, orthogonals. Probably a word you've never heard of, and probably a word you're not going to use much except for the next couple weeks. Well, I could say, now, boys and girls, it's time to draw the lines that go from your shape toward the vanishing point. But that's a lot of breath and a lot of syllables. And from this point henceforth, I will now say, draw your orthogonals. Let me explain. I'm going to draw an orthogonal that goes from this point to the vanishing point. Do this kind of lightly. We're not going to keep all of these. Trust me on this. Just do it lightly. I'll make another here. From this point down to there. So those lines are called orthogonals, lines that go toward the vanishing point, or lines that go back in space and appear to make something recede. Now this kind of looks like a triangle that's like, shooting out from the far reaches of space. That's kind of cool. Let's try it with this one here, the square. Two more orthogonals. Now, you might notice as a rule, I am not drawing from this point up here down to the vanishing point, because then I would be drawing on top of my shape, and I don't want to do that. So just as a rule for today, you can always break the rules. That's what artists do. But for today, don't draw through your shape, which also means I can't draw from these back corners, because if I did that, I would be drawing right on top of my shape. Even if it's just very thin, I don't want to draw on top of this. All right, hopefully you got that to work. What I want you to notice here, we just did a triangle and a square, is that these two will be different. It kind of matters where these are placed. So how many points, that's what we really need to ask ourselves, how many points without drawing through the shape can see this vanishing point? In this case, it's 1, 2, 3. So go ahead and draw those 3 orthogonals like this. Lightly. Pretty cool, huh? I remember doing this back in about 4th or 5th grade. That's about when you learn this. 3rd, 4th, 5th graders can learn this basic, technique. It's kind of cool. Just looks like things are, exploding or shooting out. This triangle's a little different, whereas this one, we could only really see 2 points that see the vanishing point without drawing through the shape. This one, well, let's check it out. We can indeed get 3 different orthogonals going toward the vanishing point. So let's try this rectangle over here. That might be the next most easy to do. In this case, there's just 2. You do want to be fairly precise. Really try to get it right on the corners, really try to go right to the vanishing point. If you're just doing this kind of willy-nilly, it's not going to give you a very good result. Now, how many different orthogonals do we need for this shape? I've heard some in the past say, well, you need 4, or you need 5, or you need 6. Well, I'm not going to draw through this corner and draw through my L, but I do see 1, 2, Don't forget this inside corner, 3, 4, 5 orthogonals. So go ahead and draw those. It doesn't matter if you start here or start here. It doesn't really matter. Do these lightly. All right, by now, hopefully you're getting this to work. Things are starting to click. Now a circle is a little bit different. We don't have any corners or hard edges. So here's how we tackle a circle. I would line my straight edge up right on the vanishing point, and then make sure it still touches that vanishing point the whole time. Just find where it just starts to touch the circle right about there. And try to get that outermost edge. There we go. And the same with the other side. Make sure your straight edge is touching the vanishing point, and then find the outermost part. There we are. And now it looks like that circle is exploding out from that center point too. Now this one might give you a headache depending on what you drew, and if yours looks different than mine, you're kind of on your own. But watch as I, number one, draw from all the corners and edges, but keeping in mind, I don't want to draw through my shape. So just watch as I tackle mine, and then you might want to pause and try yours. Some are obvious, like corners like this. Some are not as obvious, like round parts like this. And then there's ones back here, but I'm not going to draw through my shape. So I'm going to draw and stop. Draw a little and stop. I see a couple edges here. One back here. Okay, I think that's about it. Yep. All right, there we have it. So I just wanted to show you that you can take any old shape, whether it's geometric or organic, and you can make it go toward this. I do see one more edge, maybe even two I'd like to do. This round part here, I think I'll throw a line in right there. And this is kind of a corner, it's a rounded corner. Maybe I'll just do this lightly. There we go. So you kind of decide based on what you see, if they're corners or edges. All right, well, this is all fine and dandy, but sometimes maybe we don't want these shapes to look like they're exploding from a central point and expanding like the universe forever and ever. Maybe we want to shorten this up and make this into a die. Instead of two dice, you have just one die. Well, we're going to need to use this step 4. And that's the idea of parallel lines. So you could write down parallel if you want. I believe it's 2 L's. Yes, parallel lines. Or you could simply make a graphic like this. No doubt, if you're in high school, you've used or encountered parallel lines before in one of your math classes. If not, well, you soon will. So parallel lines, of course, go the same exact direction. They never cross over each other. They're never going to intersect. But to make this look more like a die, what I'd like to do is not make this section here go on forever. I'd like to draw another line that's parallel to this one. It goes up and down. And the thing is, I decide. So make another note here. Let's put a little question mark and put I decide. You've got a choice to make. Well, I could make this a long stick of butter, and I could put my line way back here. But one thing I do know is it has to be going this direction, straight up and down. It has to be parallel. If I turn it like this, well, my stick of butter is going to look like it's been, at some angle. But I'm going to make it a die, so I'm trying to move this closer, right about there. And I draw a parallel line. I hope you agree this line is parallel to this one right here. Okay. So hopefully you see that this kind of looks like the front of a die. Let's just make it look even more like a die. And this looks like the side. Maybe this side has just one. Make a tall oval here. There you go. And our next step is we need to erase the orthogonals that are over here. Okay, we don't want those. So step 5, erase. I'm just going to put erase orthos. So here's what I mean. Check this out. I could really make this look more like a die if I erase this and just leave just the die itself. It's nice to know how this is constructed. So you may, because this is your notes, maybe you want to leave it something like this. So it looks kind of dotted and dashed because it is your notes after all. You might even want to leave these or make them very light. But at the end of the day, we're just trying to end up with a die. And step 6 is to add those details, which I got ahead of the game here, but to shade, that's most important. So for step 5, put shade. And add details. Shade and detail. So with just a little bit of shading on one side or another, maybe a little cast shadow. We can really bring that thing to life. Okay. So there's one. Hopefully you got that to work. Let's try it with what I think is the next most easy, which is this one up here. And we're going to, well, you did step 1, we did step 2, we did step 3. It's time for where to put that parallel line. Now, if you're ever not sure where that goes, what you do is you come through this zone here, I call the space zone, where the orthogonals are, and you're going to hit a line. It's this line right here that needs a friend, a parallel line. But again, you decide. So, I mean, you could make this a very elongated prism that you could pass light through. You could make it a pyramid. So you'll have to decide where to put that line. I think I'll put mine, oh, maybe right up here. Make it look like we're looking at the bottom of a pyramid. So again, notice that this line and this line are going the same direction. They're parallel. And then I'm on to step 5, which is to erase these orthogonals, which is why I said do them lightly, because it's just a method to our madness. We don't want people to actually see how these are constructed and let them know our two-dimensional magic. But this is how it works. So this could be a pyramid. Maybe we're looking up at this pyramid and it's just darker underneath. That makes sense. It's floating up in the air. There's the bottom of it. If you want to make it a little more pyramid-esque, you could make a few more lines here. Break it up into some sections, even give it a little texture. But I don't need to get too carried away there. Hopefully that looks kind of like a floating pyramid to you. All right, let's tackle this one right here, this rectangle. I think this is the next most easiest. So again, folks, look at your orthogonals and come through this space zone and you're going to hit a line. It's that line right here that needs a parallel friend. And of course, the line that you make is always smaller than the other one. Notice how this one is a little bit shorter than this one. This one's a little shorter than this one because it's trying to imply that it's further back. So what do I want to make? I could make a book that's fallen over or a cereal box or I think I'll make a brick. So right here, I decide to make another parallel line with this one, the same direction. And then I'm on to step 5, erasing the rest of these orthogonals. So all I see is that brick shape. If you want to know how to make a good brick, well, you could go like this and make a few little voids. And let's shade this side. There we go. And you could always give it a little texture. These bricks are generally rough. Maybe even a little cast shadow. All right, so we just drew a brick, kind of a 3D looking brick. All right, let's get to the more advanced ones. Let's try this square down here. Now this time, we've got a little different scenario. We're not just drawing one parallel line. This one's going to need two. So we've got a new scenario here. Well, first of all, I want to, I get to decide. So you have to think, what do I want to make here? Do I want to make another die? Maybe I'll make this a loaf of bread. So I'm going to move my lines further back. So you could start with the top one and make one parallel to that, or start with the side one. That's up to you. But watch, maybe follow me. I'm going to put my straight edge right over here, and I need to make sure it's going the same direction as this line here, up and down. I'll just move this back, I think about that far. I decide how long my loaf of bread is, or kind of, it's going to look like a stick of butter at first. Now, to make this top part, now I am kind of bound to start right here. Obviously, if there's a corner that goes up and over, then this similarly has to go up and over. So I need a horizontal right here. There we go. So now I've got, it looks like a long stick of butter, but by the time I'm done with this, it will look like a loaf of bread. Watch this. Erase your orthogonals, step 5. And now it looks a little better, but you could make this more like a loaf of bread if you, watch me lighten this up a little bit, and just make it look more like a piece of bread up front. There we go. And I'll make it look like a piece of bread back here. Yeah, there we go. And I think next, I'll make another little line here. It goes back in space. And make it a little darker here on this side. But as it comes around here, it gets a little lighter. So I'm trying to use some shading to kind of imply that this has a little bit of form to it. And I'll just give it a little texture, as bread has texture. You could even go like this and add little slices if you'd like. You could slice up your bread. This is getting a little bit advanced here, but hopefully you can see how that works. It should look like this part of the bread back here is smaller and this part is larger. All right, let's turn this one into, how about a tent? So in this case, I need, again, 2 parallel lines because I have 2 space zones here. So a lot of people mess this up and they start guessing like how to do this. There's really no guessing. Just put your straight edge right on the edge and then just move it back so that whatever line you make is parallel, going the same direction. And since this one stopped right here, I need to make this one parallel to this line. I've got a little bit of a glare there. Let's try it over this way. Make sure that it's parallel to this line in front and make sure it touches the first line you made. And there we go. Doesn't quite look like a tent yet, but if we erase our orthogonals, step 5, and do some shading and detail, we can work it out. Let's make a little door here. Maybe there's a little flap that's opened up and it's tied back. So inside the tent, it's darker. And maybe this side has a little more shadow than the other side. And a little cast shadow over here. Oh, let's put a welcome mat out front. I always like to have a little welcome mat so I don't get too much dirt inside my tent. You could really get carried away and you could make a little fire pit over here, which probably shouldn't be so close to the tent. There we go. So kind of looks like we're looking down on that tent. Maybe we've climbed up a tree or you're flying over in a helicopter. Because if you think about it, this is where we're looking. This is our view. So if you're looking at something and it's in a very horizontal view like this, you can see the sides of it, but you can't see the top. But this is below where our eye is looking, because this is where you imagine this is where you're looking with the eye. You can see the top of this. This one is above our eye level, so we can see the bottom of it. Let's try this circle. Circles are interesting because we don't have edges or we don't even have parallel lines. But circles require a unique solution. What you do is you just draw another circle right inside between the two orthogonals. Now you decide, do you want to make a soup can, or do you want to make a long pencil? You have to decide on the length of the object. I think I'll draw my circle right here. And my goal is to try to make the circle touch the two orthogonals. Now there's another little step here I've got to do on the circle. I'm going to erase this part. I don't need that part. And now you can kind of see, oops, it should look a little more solid. Like I've got, well, it looks like a tube of chapstick or something. If you erase this, it's like step 5, you can really see that you've made a cylinder. So you turned a circle into a cylinder. I could give this, let's give this a top. Maybe this is a chapstick and I want to make a top for this. So right here is my top. Drawing another circle, but it's really just this curve right here that I need to draw the top of my chapstick. There we go. And oftentimes the tops are kind of white, so let's just color in this part here a little darker. Got my blending stump handy. I might as well use that. There we go. And I think I'll just write chapstick on here. And what about a little more shading on this side? All right. So it should look like a cylinder. All right, we're getting to the tough ones. Let's try this L here. Now, what could I do with an L? Well, kind of looks like a couch. I could make that into a chair or a couch. This one's going to be a little more difficult because I'm going to need 4 parallel lines to complete this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, if you think about it, what we're really doing is just echoing this line here. 1, 2, 3, 4. But we're just making a smaller version of it because it's being kind of pinched by these orthogonal lines back here. You can start wherever you want, but I'm going to start right here and turn this into a chair. So I need one that's horizontal. And then, of course, this goes straight down. And then straight across. And straight down again. There we go. The world's most uncomfortable chair. All right, let's erase those orthogonals and dress this chair up with some shading and some details. Again, if this was for a client or final work of art, you would erase all these orthogonals, the vanishing point too, so no one could see your trickery. But for today, again, you might want to just leave these notes so you remember, oh yeah, that's how I made that. All right, So what we could do is, let's just put a leg right here. We'll give this chair some height. There's one. Well, the other one ought to be about at the same level, so I'm just going to use my straight edge and make sure I know, there we go, that this one should be right about there. Right on the same line. Now, this leg should be on this same line. Watch this. I'm going to use my straight edge and put it right on this corner and line it up with my vanishing point. Just very lightly, just make a light orthogonal so that I know right where this last leg goes. It should go right to that line and stop. There we go. This very back leg that we might see through here, we're not going to see that one. I don't want to draw through my shape. All right, so let's make this a little fancier. I always think about the light. If light were shining down on this, it's probably going to illuminate the tops, but maybe the sides, not so much because they're horizontal or they're vertical. So just use some hatching, just lines to give the sides a little more value. And that should, just by doing that and having it stair step from light to dark and light to dark, will give that impression that it's more three-dimensional. Of course, I'm gonna throw a little pillow here. This chair looks really uncomfortable. There we go. Now you could shade this other side over here too and make it even darker. Maybe this is the side that doesn't catch much light at all. If you really want to get into it, you could shade this a bit more. Really make it solid. Even put some cast shadows coming off of this. Shadows are everything. They really bring it to life. So not the most comfortable chair, but you know, we made a chair out of an L. Imagine if you made your L shape a little different and you made it more, you know, round and kind of more comfortable. The same thing could happen. You could make another chair that way too, but it might be a little easier to sit on. All right, lastly, oh, we've got this one up here. This one, I guess I want you to watch me first and then you can try. I don't know what I'm going to make this odd shape into, but it could be an alien spacecraft or some strange organic form. Really, I just wanted to show you that you could draw any shape and still get this to work. So I do have to kind of choose, I decide, step 4, what depth or what distance I want to go back. I think I'll go about this far back. So you might notice it's not so much a parallel line this time, but I'm looking at this edge and trying to echo the same one. Huh. Well, now I have to do that here, and I can't just continue here. I need to think about going back the same distance here, and the same distance here. And this does have sort of a corner we can wrap around. And that's about it. Maybe this one, we'll do a little notch there. So I do have some erasing to do. And I don't know that I'm going to turn this into something. I guess it could be some kind of, I don't know, it looks like a animal cracker, I don't know. But what I am going to do is consider the light. I'm going to consider my light sources up here shining down on this. And I will make these undersides darker. Of course, the top parts might be catching some light, but maybe this part not so much. Or maybe it's a little dark here, but as it comes up toward the light, it's curving, so it gets lighter. This might be really dark down here, not catching any light. The same with this, really dark. Well, maybe this side does catch a little bit of light. Again, dark to light. So how you shade it can really bring it to life too. All right. Well, that is day one, step one, learning the basics of linear perspective. And of course, this is 1 point, just one vanishing point, so 1 point perspective. This is the basis for everything we're about to do for the next few days. We're going to do this a little amped up, kind of like on steroids over the next few days. So you remember this. Remember today, review it often, remember the steps, because this stuff you need to know. Have a great day, everyone.